You were listening to the French Prime Minister announcing lockdown measures will begin to unwind in France on Monday. Edouard Philippe speaking in the company of government ministers, including the country's health, finance and interior minister. Now, France's border will be remaining shut for now. The Greater Paris region has been labelled a red zone. This, even though the number of coronavirus infections have been going down. Now, companies in Paris are being encouraged to allow their employees to continue working from home. Public transport will be gradually ramped up in France, but masks will be compulsory. Anyone caught without a mask risks a fine of 135 euros. For more, we can bring in France 24's French politics editor, Marc Perelman. Marc, we had the Prime Minister announcing a relaxation of rules, if you will, but not a whole lot is being relaxed, is it?
No, and what people were waiting for is the go-ahead. Yes, May the 11th will be the beginning of a new stage of deconfinement. He said, yes, this was going to happen. He said it was good news, but it will be very progressive. And he insisted on the fact that you couldn't go from full confinement to full deconfinement because there were still concerns, and there were also differing regional concerns. Especially, he said, there were still so-called red zones, essentially the northeast of France, and especially the Paris region. He said clearly there the situation was still not as good as we had hoped. He said the number of cases, as you indicated, was going down, but clearly not quickly enough. So there's still a concern about the Paris region. And then we had different ministers explaining how this would happen in schools, in public transportation, encouraging people to continue as much as possible working from home, and how the government is planning to support French companies that are clearly going to struggle. And also the emphasis was from the health minister, who said that France will be in a position to test, quote unquote, massively as of May the 11th. He didn't use a number that was used by Edouard Philippe when he first presented this plan, which was 700,000 tests per week. The health minister did not mention that figure because there's clearly uncertainty over whether France will be able to meet that target. And he said we'll be able to test anyone who needs to be tested. The question is, how do you determine who needs to be tested? And clearly there was a willingness to test only people with symptoms or only people who had been in contact with people infected by the virus. There's also the question of masks. There again, reassurance that masks will be available, distributed, or sold at
pharmacies,
bargain prices, essentially, and that there shouldn't be any worried. And so clearly there is a willingness to say, okay, this is the first stage, but the next stage will be June the 2nd, essentially a 3-week trial period, if you will, where the health indicators will be watched very, very carefully. And if there's an uptick, the Prime Minister said this would be a dreadful moment, but we cannot discard the possibility that there will be a kind of reconfinement, or at least some measures of reconfinement, if the progress that is being seen does not continue, especially in those so-called red areas, starting with the Paris region.
Okay, Marc, thank you very much for that, Marc Perelman there. Now, for more, we can speak to